Hello, everyone. Welcome to Neena Expressions. My name is Neena Massey, and today we will be talking to Tara Seren, and I will let her introduce herself. Hello, Tara.
Hi, Neena. I'm Tara Seren. I'm so happy to be here and to be chit-chatting with you and talking about what has brought us together and what brought us on the show. I'm excited.
That sounds great. I would love to have you tell us what brought us together because I love what you wrote in the notes, and I have those right here, which I can refer to. I
Mhm.
really want to say thank you also for your professionalism in writing these notes. Because I sent you the questions, and usually, the few times I've done this before, people sort of just think it over. And I really want to say I really love that you took the time to write some things out and send those to me. So thank you.
Yeah, I find as I have been working on building a podcast myself and just noticing like not everybody catches the little things that we catch, and it's like a gift to share that.
Mm.
Like, even though we've been orbiting each other in some way around the community for like almost 20 years, like just however long that has been. There was
And
time.
that's what's so exciting, right? That's what's so exciting. Like, I love how you just said orbiting. Because we didn't really do much together, but we were like always in each other's circles. So can you share today what brought us together in your memory, the way you remember it?
Yeah, and I was just about to say that's the gift, right? Is because we get to learn that somebody was looking at us, seeing us in a certain way. And my first memory of you is coming into the Bhar Art gallery, and I was putting my art up and being in the Santa Fe district, and you came in and you were in this goddess dance in this form, and you did this performance, and it was just so embodied and so empowering. And I think we had been crossing paths in some of the nonprofit and with the school, the Escuela, and where I was living in the North Side community. So it was all coming together, and our energies just sort of felt that. I felt very inspired and empowered, and then through that we stayed in touch, but not more than acquaintances, yet powerful impact and reception from the communities that we were involved in and still are.
Right. Well, and then, I haven't really been on Facebook, but I think we friended each other back then or somewhere along the line. And as I've been doing the community gathering, I've just been on Facebook, posting me things about that. And then I also went to CHAC recently. So it was before the 2023 gathering. So maybe it was last summer. And I saw some of your artwork on the wall, and I was like, whoa, this is such beautiful work. And I really resonated with your work too, and really wanted to have you be a part of the gathering. So I think it's just been such a blessing and such a treat that you've been able to join us on the gathering.
Yeah, and thank you. That particular piece of artwork brought two or three people to just connect with me, like, hey girl,
Oh,
I'm thinking of you. I saw your art, and so that particular piece of art is the first in a series of a birthing series of recognizing birth and the different mythology and cultural representations of birth, and the way that we're also transcending that. And so that particular piece was inspired by Egyptian, and I love that it connected us.
yeah. Why did you want to do the community gathering? When I invited you, you were so um, just so receptive and ready and willing to be part of something like that. So what resonated with you for the gathering?
Well, like you said, you had been posting on Facebook, but from my perspective, I really resonated with your emails that you've been sending through and been active through the pandemic time, and you reached out and said, I saw your art. I'd love, are you interested in this? We've been working on that healing of the escuela and the transition of that and all the murals in the community. And I grew up in the Sunnyside area, and it's a deeply impacted me, the escuela. I started coming in as a young person, grieving many friends that had died, had taken their lives. And so I was putting up candle altars in the Shoshone Gardens, celebrating Dia de los Muertos, because that was what was resonating with me. And one night I was in Denver, the first year I lived there, and I saw all of the Azteca, the Danza, and the Mexica people walking and doing their parade and going from the park, the Peace Park, to La Escuela. And I remember talking to you going, oh my God, like you were in that parade. And I was like, I jumped on there, and it was so beautiful. And then go into the rooms of those halls and to hear the drums beating, like, how could I not want to be a part of that healing that you continue to inspire and facilitate there? And, it's such a service to the community. So I felt like, yes, like, this is full circle for me.
Wow. You said so much right now. While you were talking about Dia de los Muertos, I thought about just how powerful that event has been for me too. And it taught me, I think, the most powerful part about Dia de los Muertos for me has been, besides the rituals and everything I learned from Escuela, those very sacred rituals, because I think people sort of that don't know about those things, they see it as a celebration. That's part of it, but there's this whole buildup, right? So we did this altar for the children. I actually turned it into a Montessori experience for them where they could make an altar with the Montessori way of being and everything. And just also how it taught me to view death as really an extension of life. And I have been able to have such enriching relationships with the relatives of mine who've passed. I'm going to get all teary-eyed, because at that time in those years, we've had people pass, family and everything. And I think having that as a ritual, having the altar and having a place to celebrate them, not just mourn them, but like celebrate them, is so something that I had never experienced until I worked at Escuela.
I just want to really reflect back that what you're saying is so important. The richness of the connectedness to the heartbeat of the mother, and the way that the cultural expressions are emerged and allowed to be is so healing. Like, I felt alone and orphaned, and yet even though the community that was moving through, they weren't my blood community, they weren't my family, until they became and said, if you walk in this way, you were meant to be here. Like, there's
Wow,
mistakes,
that's
and
beautiful.
there's the heartbeat, and there's room for everybody, yet we have to listen to the way that the mother walks it. It's not about like what we think it should be. And then death unfolds to us in such a new way. And yeah, like, I feel very privileged to still hear the heartbeat in the basement of that building,
Oh
and the
my
band
gosh.
and
Every
the
time I walk into there, I feel the same way. And I love what you said here. Over here, you said about Escuela, it's still so active and impacts the community at large in ways that are beyond food and coffee. I thought that was like just so profound, because when I walk into nurture, what it is now, then the nurture, the new place, the evolution of Escuela, um, I still feel that. I feel all the spiritual energy. When Nita has come in and spoken at the gatherings, she always remembers the pitter patter of the students walking. or sometimes running down the hall, you know, just such a joyous place that we had there. And we had so many like amazing sort of meetings and demonstrations. And like, I loved how the students were involved with that. And I really love how the community taught us to stay connected with everyone. So it was just a very it was almost a necessary step for me to take because I'm like, wait a second, we're cut off. Like, where's all our people? Like, we used to do all sorts of stuff together to the point where it had just become ritual or habit. And I was like, where is everyone? I would love to get everyone back together. And the truth is, I think the Chicano muralists and the artists were really receptive to the gathering the first year, and that allowed for some more healing to take place, for more people to come in and to start talking about how they felt about the closure and everything. So, I feel like that was a necessary next step. And I'm really grateful that Nurture's allowing us to do that there and that they're getting involved more every year.
Well,
So
it's helpful for them too, because we already scientifically know we don't function well in the world unless we are opening ourselves to the new perspectives of things. As if it were just sort of moving in a business way, especially on channels or vortexes on the land, like there has to be a moment to pause and to bring to the altar or the altar, right? And it's like that's not necessarily something a culture decided. That's something that we responded to when we listened. And the Azteca and the Danza and you and your family and those who were called to that responded to that land vortex to, heal because they heard the call of the mother, and it just says like, yeah, we're moving into a time where things are moving and all different people, Chicago, Texas, everybody's coming into that area now, right? Because nurture and that thing that's growing. And yet we're able to walk into that and still hear the subtle timelines, like pulling back the veil just a little bit and seeing the pitter patter and hearing the rituals and remembering, and those things that's what the altars are, right? And so then we get to come and be a living one. And so you invited me to sing and play my drum at the living altar, like yes.
yeah, I loved what you said about that being a vortex, like the land itself being a vortex. Because I don't know, I've been even before. So I worked at Escuela for many years, like maybe 15 years or maybe longer. Well, 15 years at least. And then even prior to that, I was somehow drawn to that area. I was in a relationship earlier in life with someone for 7 years, and it was in that same area. So I mean, there's something that's constantly drawing me back to that exact area. And I love what you said about hearing the call of the mother, you know, like that makes it just feel so natural.
Isn't
And
that
it
what
already does, it's just giving it more honor and more, I would say a little bit more protection.
especially because we can see how the rivers, everything comes into that space geographically, so we can see that that's that crossroads, and it doesn't just affect that one spot, because over those years I was working with Arlette Lucero at the Museo, and Vivian and Dava out in Aurora, and with Maria and Fabian and Juanita at the Servicios, and the down at the spot, at Urban Peak downtown, and all those places, I was able to say, do you know about the Escuela? Do you know that you can go and find alternative education? Do you know that they do these dances, that they have ceremony? Like this was something that I was able to tell people all across Denver to Aurora, to those who were wanting to, one, remember their culture, be a part of culture, be a part of, family and heartbeat, and remember who they are. And I feel like that's what nurture is maybe doing, is coming into that vortex to remember who they are.
Right.
I love Rick Rubin says, the earth we're actually vessels to what the world is doing, to us. And so when we, instead of say we're doing this, like, we say, oh, we're all responding to this place on the earth that's has a calling and a heartbeat to us, and it's trying to bring us home. And that's, to me, what Escuela was.
Yes, me too, me too. Oh, I love this talk. I love this talk so much.
Yeah, that's why we connected. You said, like, this was a family, for you, and it brought you into a way that was resemblance to your heritage and culture, and
In
you.
some ways.
Oh, yeah.
In some ways not. I mean, I think I'm getting emotional, but I guess that's okay. Um, the way it is the same is that I come from a large family, just like the Gonzales family. We do everything together. It's revolving around food and like festivities and like dance and, just art and stuff like that. The ways that it's different is that, okay, here's what it is. The Chicano community has shown me how to fight.
Mm.
Like, really, like, I've been around, speaking of like matriarchs, like Nita, Valerie, her whole, like, so many people within the family and, within the community, just fighting for students, fighting for humanitarian things, and just getting out there and saying stuff. I think that is a profound difference because where we came from, like, my family is Christian in a Muslim country in Pakistan. And so speaking was absolutely the wrong thing to do. The only way to survive there was to stay quiet, and so they came here and stayed quiet. And I stay quiet too. I'm a very quiet person. But then to be around people like Nita and just see her just kind of go at it, like, I I have never been so inspired.
I wholeheartedly agree. And to me, it's also like, it really hits home when I listen to the songs that come from the beautiful language and throughout the history that it's carried on. And it brings me home every time. I have to say, I feel very privileged and blessed to have found myself walking, to the fires that have said, oh, remember this was also natural to you,
Mhm.
that
Well,
we
the comments
fight,
that you
pray.
made, yeah, the comments that you made, and now talking about this flame and everything, the comments that you made about the gathering were just so beautiful and so nice. And I thank you so much for that because right afterwards, I was just like, in my own sense of chaos or whatever, just holding that kind of an event, it leaves you with some bunch of stuff. And just to hear all of what you saw and like the way that you felt about it really was helpful for me. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Well, ceremony, the danza, what they do is ceremony, and there's always a layer of I think finding ourselves, and I think that that's what I love about ceremony and the heartbeat, and why I'm drawn to the drum and all the things, because when you don't know family, or you have to be silent about family, or you have to, remember who you are and become family to others, it's like, that's the essence of the song of humanity, and they're still singing it, and I like to be around that.
Yes. Wow. Well, I want to say thank you for speaking so beautifully and just so profoundly about your experience at the Escuela, the community gathering. It's taken me on an emotional I don't want to say roller coaster, but down memory lane pretty much. And I love that feeling because those were good things. So I would like to now talk about you and talk about how you serve the community. How do you do that? What are you doing? Doing all sorts of great stuff.
Yeah, sometimes I have many arms, that's when I'm working with understanding the balance of that, right? Because like what you said with the emotions, it's like, how do we work into the senses and bring it out? And, like in the community when I was orbiting then, a lot of what I did was art and mural work with kids and finding ourselves through the art and I went into a lot of studies around holistic health and different traditional medicines and histories and art histories that would like flourish inside of me. I may not necessarily walk around and say this is my degree, but everything that I learned in those experiences became something that I express now. And so working with murals and collaborating with other artists, bringing art to the community has always been something of my offering. And because by nature of my own self journey and healing, I often always bring healing as well too. And so I have a healing practice now of over 8 years that I have been working directly in practice with people, helping them move through catalyst moments of their life. A lot of people on the edge of things. And I think that, my years in school, my years in community and nonprofits, and standing and saying, oh, like I was on the board of directors of SIVA with Mavis and Rose and we tried to bring healing to the community, but there's these constrictions around nonprofit that don't feel natural, and so
But can you describe what you're talking about with that? Because I feel that I just can't define that.
it's like taking a creative, beautiful vision and that could be so easily implemented if we were able to just walk out and give and then people could receive, right? And then there's all these layers that happen in the nonprofit that almost like whittle it down to these boxes to where it loses the vitality of the heartbeat. And it also has a limitation. It feels like it's almost like you get like this and you can't quite open your wings, and
That is what Nita was fighting for always. The fight was just like so big with that. So she didn't let us feel that, but she did.
she felt it. And the languaging that you have to use to put into the funding to get the things, because even now I'll say something and I'm like, wow, that came from my nonprofit writing. And I didn't like this. I didn't like, underserved people, like that doesn't feel good to me. I don't
What does
like
that feel
saying
like to you? What does that feel like?
it means it feels like I've created a box where people fit. And if I'm a creator of my own reality, then I've spoken that into an invocation, and that is not in alignment with what my heart and belief system is. And so when I have to do that to get nourishment, to bring nourishment or investment into my community, there's a block and a barrier between me and my brother, me and my sister, me and my auntie, me and my children. And I don't like that block. And so it feels like I just get to this place where I can't lift off and fly. And I find that so interesting that you said that and brought up Nita, because at the gathering, I really wanted to share my experience of when Corky died. I happened to be at City Park and everybody was marching. I knew they were marching downtown and I knew I needed to be where I was. And I saw all these pelicans, like 30 to 60 pelicans, like tons, lift off out of City Park Lake and ride the thermals all the way up into the sky. And
Wow.
felt like that was so powerful. So when you said that we're fighting, and I kept saying, oh yeah, I want to spread my ancient wings, because
Yeah.
this is the chokehold on the voice that we have, just to be naturally who we are and
Mhm.
align to each other naturally. So there's not a room for disparity.
Right. Yeah, and so like the type of fighting that she would do would be like to ensure that we could teach the indigenous things, the indigenous ways, and then smudge or be able to take students and do things with them that were, a little bit different, that were unorthodox, like take them to the demonstrations and have that be part of the school, the schooling that they were taught, have their parents come with them so they felt safe about it. And I mean, we were able to do so much dynamic work there because she fought uh, she fought against that.
Which shouldn't be taken away. That's an old way of trying to keep I'm a homeschool mom. And
Oh, yes,
I
yes,
don't want to put
that in
my
your
kids in
house.
certain kinds of schools because why would I want to fight to have smudge? Why would I want to fight to let my children have what's naturally theirs, which is ceremony, which is an alternate way, right? And to bring that into the mainstream is such a big, powerful force. Like I see Anita, like the pelican, the ancient one, bringing that in. And that's the thing that I really want to see. How do I create something different in the world so we don't have to fight for that? Like I was asked to do an officiation at a funeral, and we're working with the military and the young man who died, and his squad, his people were there. And one of the things I mentioned was what we're really fighting for. What
Oh,
are we really fighting for? What, to be home and whole, to be able to drum, to be able to have the smudge and the smoke and the song and the ceremony for the ones we love, and not have to fight so hard to have the simple things that are natural to us that keep us attuned to the earth. So, I
right. I mean, I totally hear you, and I think that now looking back at what happened with Escuela, I feel like there were people that were supposed to fight.
yeah.
That was meant to teach us the next way to be.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had, like I told you, my background is like the quiet one. I was always the quiet one, like the whole time, but I resonated with it because if I didn't learn that, if I didn't see it, I would have never known how to do that internally or whatever. I would
I
have
so
never known
agree.
I would have never known how to really speak out about injustice. And although I do still do it in my own quiet way, I'm not out there, with the bullhorn. Although a lot of the demonstrations, they have those. Um, but I mean, it was a necessary part of my growth for sure to see that.
I love that. And I totally agree. And no way am I saying like I'm trying to shelter my kids from that. But I'm just saying, like, what would it be like if we didn't have the vocabulary for that? What would be like if we started to shape our nonprofits in the way that we receive money so that we could really get those things that we need? And it is the people like
And
me
keep the
that
soul of
have paved that way.
yeah, keep the soul of the community or the nonprofit's idea intact. Is that what
Well,
you're saying?
decolonize our lives so that we're
Mhm.
not being bred for workforce. That, like, if you need to take time because you have to grieve, then you can. If you need to take the time for yourself because you have a baby, or the thing that goes on in your life, like our world today tells us, we can't even just bring smudge into the hospital because that's unsanitary, but this is the way that that person might heal, because that's their cultural belief, that's their connection to spirit. So to separate that is a colonizing tactic, right? Because then we don't heal to our best of our ability. And
Yeah, I mean, you're on to so much. And it kind of makes me think about how they're allowing it in hospice now, but not really in the hospital, which is also kind of like, wow, why are you waiting till that, level to be able to allow people to really be who they are?
I went to college, like that was like one of the biggest things that I think we were wanting to see happen implemented. So when I started to see that, in Facebook memes and things happening and implementing and awareness going out about, missing and murdered indigenous, like those were things that were talked about in only anthropology classes, like 20 years ago. But now we are seeing that, and so that is a huge part of the arc, right, of what people have fought for, that's really showing up. But it's also like it's pretty amazing how the time lag of how that it takes for us to really wake up.
You're so right. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your career. You said you started with art, bringing art in the community, and then working in these different organizations. And then you've gone into psychedelic integrative practitioner and holistic health body worker. I would like to know how did you did you start with art and sort of move into those areas, or how did that become part of your practice?
I think both art and healing was something I was always doing. I was living on my own at 15 and hitchhiking around the country, and I just was like, I'm gonna learn. And the people who wrote certificates, I'm gonna be that person. Like I'm
Experiential learning. You were like making yourself a Montessori kid.
yeah, exactly. And so I was just feeding myself herbalism and Chinese medicine, and I was looking into the Mayan, and I was just like really reading. I had traveled to Egypt to see the first birthing stool. I didn't really know where I was going, but when I went to study it, I knew that I needed to heal. I
Hmm.
knew that I had friends that I wanted to heal, and I
What an
never
important calling at such a young age.
thanks. Yeah, I felt
That's
it.
beautiful. And that you listened and that you didn't let anyone stop you.
Well, I actually had, a lot of, um, it didn't align with my family, but, like when I went to Egypt and I sat in the mosque and I heard the prayer call, I just like, and felt it. And the way that the temple was constructed, where the jars were facing inward, like every layer of the geometry of everything had a healing to it. And
Mhm, mhm.
that's was what the feedback had, validation, that people said, you're 21 years old, what are you doing here by yourself, going to temples, like it was like that most people are coming here to gamble or watch the belly dancing or whatever. Like it was not, that was, and I got that validation that I was on a sojourn, and
It was
so
a land vortex for you.
what.
Maybe that was a land vortex for you.
Oh, Egypt absolutely was. I actually had an out of body experience at Abu Simbel, on the exact time that my one of my dearest friends took his own life. And so I had an experience in that realm, and it actually physically made my thyroid go out of whack. And I've been suffering for thyroid Hashimoto's since I was 21.
Mm.
And what had happened was thyroxine just started releasing. And it wasn't until I was working and supporting in some of the Lakota ceremonies that it came around that sometimes when we leave our body, if we don't immediately come back, our organs do things that
Yeah.
function. And so
Mhm, mhm.
there's been some recovery from that, and that has led me on that healing path, right? I went in wanting to help heal injustices in the world, through my understanding of what I had was studying in school, but I also wanted to heal myself. And so I did step, and I would have to say, found home and found spirit, and my ancestors opened up to me in the Lakota Sweat Lodge in Denver, and actually it was in Valmont Butte and Boulder. And I remember just the stars opening up to me, and really starting a path that took me out of educational perspective of how I was going to affect the world, right? How
Right,
I
like
was going to be the
like what you
non-tourist
said. Yeah.
with something to offer, but really it was every time about me doing the healing work on myself, and then the world would move through me, and spirit would move through me, and that we would be in an open channel. And so my life has been guided in that way, where I sat and listened and opened and prayed and saw tools that would help me, and then people started coming saying, would you pray with me? Would you work on me? And so my integrative healing knowledge of all the different modalities that I studied, along with, my love for advancement and inspiration and staying hip with it, going alongside some of the cool Western medical opportunities that we have, and putting that together to really like look at the big picture. And then I have a really good artist eye. So when I work with somebody, they are the altar, they are what's unfolding, and all I got to do is sit and be and witness and watch them unfold. And really the best place to do that is at somebody's feet. And so that's where I start in my healing practice, is at someone's feet. And
Interesting.
people come when they want to change their lives, and they are ready, and I'm not doing it. They've been doing it their whole lives, and they're ready, and they want to be witnessed. And I'm privileged and grateful to witness them.
That
And
is beautiful. I love what you said about having the guide be your own self-healing, because that's also the journey that I'm on. I was diagnosed with some autoimmune stuff in 2017, and my life has never been the same ever since. And the only thing I could think of was like self-healing. And that's like, it's sort of like obsessively become my life now. And not in a way of like knowing that. It was just like I felt that maybe there's a way that this could get better. That was the first thing, the quest for like healing. And then it became coming to terms with it. And then it became now starting to share it.
I think that isn't that kind of like the seed, the growth, the flower, like, and then full circle.
Wow. Yeah,
It
yeah,
just
yeah.
that's
Really
when we
cool.
know we're in alignment, right? Because we're
Mhm.
the flower.
You're such an artist. You give me the chills. You really, really do. So
Well,
what are some of your offerings for the community?
yeah. So, I do healing body work, and work with people on that level, coming back, letting the nervous system come back into the body. Like, I can't tell you enough how many people are vibrating out here because of where the world that we live in right now.
What
But
do
I
you mean
also
by that? Wait. I don't understand what you meant. I'm
just
so
that
curious.
a lot a lot of patterning I'm seeing of this, just like we're all kind of like patted up against the world, kind of seeing where we're at, because things are changing in a really big way and seemingly moving faster. But it seems like there's a nervous system buzz when I work with people, that when I can bring the body back into feeling like down into the feet, it's almost like we slip back into our bodies and we can go, oh my God, like, how
I
did I
really
get
needed
way
to,
out there?
yeah, I really needed to hear that. Like, I probably always need to hear that. So,
And it's us, and it's also what's in our, how the environment is changing. It's how do we know where to fight, the importance of learning, know where to fight and how to fight. And
yeah, because the whole autoimmunity is that we're fighting ourselves, right? Oops.
it's huge.
I'm like, I didn't mean that, but I don't know.
And that's not an invitation to condemn yourself either, right?
So true. That's another, you're right. It has layers. Like that's one of them. It's like, why am I fighting myself? Please stop. Like, I love you. It's okay. But then it like continues. So yeah, that was where I had to get to the point of like, okay, there's something here that I'm supposed to learn.
Right. And what if we're moving into this age, right, of Aquarius, or this age of Shiva? We're out of the age of like destroying the demons and out of the age of the guru. And, the elders and the shamans are passing this on because we are having to look inside of ourselves. Well, what if autoimmune was an elder and it was saying, look inside, look inside?
It for sure is doing that. And I think that like when you reference Shiva, the way I've studied dance, like classical Indian dance, I've learned through the Shiva dances. Bharatanatyam is the style. It's always a process of destruction and creation at the same time. Or maybe not at the same time, but like alternatively.
Well, yeah, it's the dance of the alchemizing of poison. So how could you not have, you have to have room for that. Kali has a spot.
Yeah, Kali does. Kali makes the spot.
We did some DJ down at the spot, Kali.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, I
But
love what you're saying because I heard something too that maybe autoimmune isn't really us attacking ourselves. Maybe it's actually healing going on at a deeper level. I don't quite understand what that means, but um I just want to believe that that's true.
well, what I heard in the reason why I said it was actually inspired by what you said. I knew I needed healing. I went in, I'm healing myself, and now I'm sharing it. Right. So it's like the elder came and said, look within, and you did. And what you found there gave you healing. And that healing is what you're sharing. And so if we don't have external gurus anymore, and we're now in a place of we have to heal ourselves because we are 7 billion strong human people trying to figure out how to resonate in the same drumbeat.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be the ones who can go in, alchemize the poison. We cannot continue to just seek it because it creates this imbalance, right? It's already in us, and
Yeah.
we just remember the book. And we're in a chapter where we forgot some things that happened a long time ago that we're trying to come back. It's in our DNA memory, but we can't access it unless we slow down to expand. We have to go in now. And so that's part of what I'm doing to help with the psychedelics. Going back to like my education, I set up my degree not just to work with a holistic medicine, but to be in entheogenic medicine. So I studied ayahuasca and ibogaine, and the things that were happening in the early 2000s that were the pioneer for what we have today, which is an entheogenic opening, which is really, if we took it out of all the labeling, the little helpers, that plants and the fungus and the all the beings, the seeds that are coming in to help us evolve and see new perspectives so we can be more creative, so we can go past that limitation. We filled ourselves up with all this good trauma experience, and we're waiting in it, and now it's time to those wings and be the pelican, and know that yes, we were once the dinosaur, but now we're the pelican, or now we're the firebird, just the way that the fire might transform and bring the thunderbird in the morning. That's how we bring the water back to humanity. We have to go through that Kali, surrender into the Shiva, and then become the beauty that what Pravarti and Shiva are, right? And we rely on, the dance.
Yeah.
It's an ever recycling.
I love your perspective. Okay, I have a question for you that wasn't on the question notes, but it's related. It's related. So I have heard a lot of people say, if you're starting a business, just pick one thing and just go with that, and then don't confuse people with too many offerings. And then what I see what you've done is you've created like a like a whole orchestra of offerings and stuff like that. So, what is your take on that? Like, did you do this one at a time? Did you just kind of go with the flow of what felt right? Because that feels right to me. Or did you say, hey, I can do all of this?
I think it depends well, sometimes the way that our brain functions, right? Like I have my son, I asked him, I said, if you had 5 paths, you could, and like spirit or God told you you could go down all 5 at once. What would you do? How would you go? Would it look like wheels in a big old like connector, unicycle or whatever? What would that look like? And he said, Mom, I would only choose one path.
That
And
sounds like the name of a book.
I said, okay, I'm like, no, you could do them all, because that's the kind of person I am.
Right.
Do
And
it
maybe
all.
that's really truly what it is that that's the type of person you are.
Right. And so that's what I'm trying to say is that I realized I was getting a teaching. He said, no, Mom, I would take the one that takes me home. And that
Wow,
that
he's so
that
your
kind of
son. He is so your son. Wow, that's beautiful that he already knows that. How old is he?
14.
That's beautiful. Homeschooling is probably just so good for them.
It is, but it's a lot. There's a lot of times where I am literally doing the 8 arm thing, Um,
Mhm.
I will say this though, to bring that in and to say it's 222. I love that. I just want to say that. To bring that in, I never put my eggs in all in one basket ever. And that does come from living on the street, like traveling, knowing that some things disappoint, some things fail. But if I put multiple efforts out, it's really important to know which ones aren't going to pan out and have like are more exhaustive of energy. But I will never regret following my art, following my healing, following my prayer, following my adventure, and my expression of all of that, right? And so they all seem to find a way to work together. And yet, even if I take time away from my art, like I'm about to put proposals into this little town I live in now. I'm like, I would love to have 5 murals in this town. I would love
Yes.
to bring the kids in and bring opportunity, but I haven't done my art like
What's your
that
town?
in like 15 years. I haven't done a mural like that in a long time. So
Well,
Cedaredge.
we've got the community gathering. We can put something together.
I know, and I think I actually have something out in that way. So it's like when you put investment into one and it's not flowering, don't stop nourishing it. Just move to the next thing that interests you and start to nourish that. And where the flow flows, like it's been very beneficial to me because when healing was low, then art picked up, right?
Mhm.
When art ebbed, then healing flowed. And when I
Mhm.
needed to find a middle ground that was just for me, prayer was there. And then they all found a way to intersect gracefully. So
Yeah. It's
I
like,
believe that it's possible for everyone to do it.
well, and I really love what you said about the times that you've had trauma in your life is what's informed you when you had to think quick on your feet when you were, just like trying to make it. And I think that's honoring your mental health and it's looking at your gifts and saying, look, if I was able to do this over here in this setting, then I can do this over here in this setting, which is a recreation of what you've wanted. Like you've made so many things possible for yourself. And maybe having gone through that has helped you develop this confidence.
It's like a big tree, right? Our living world tree. It's like we have roots in many different ways. They all unite into a trunk, but they also branch out. And if a tree can sustain that, so can we. We
Oh,
are
yeah.
directly related to them, like they are our lungs.
How do you feel knowing that your children have a different level of stability than you had?
Like I'm shifting the lineage pattern, that I'm a part of this beautiful movement that is fighting for evolution and change, and we get to be those catalyst workers, and I feel blessed.
Hugely. Your home is beautiful. Are you at your home right now?
And this is my healing space out front, and then I have my armoire that has it has a Scottish symbol of the milk thistle. I found it and I was like, oh my God, that's like, that feels like someone's, my family had that.
Well, and remind me where do you live right now? What's your city?
Oh, I live at the gateway to the Grand Mesa. I live in Cedar Edge, Colorado, on the western
Okay,
slope.
beautiful. Well, that will, I'm sure, soon have some beautiful murals made by you there.
Well, I forgot to say I haven't done like murals with kids in a long time, but I already have done one here, and so I'm excited to do more. And I do have a retreat center. I don't own it, but I work there. What that I do my private retreats to help people work with that catalyst work, and to do healing, and to drum birth and make mandalas and all the beautiful things that have come out of the alchemy of my life.
Well, that leads me to my next question, which is how do you want people in the community to engage with your work?
Um, I want people who feel called to be in the return to their original self, people who feel called to shift out of some of the patterns of their old ways and disrupt the routines, and come into a place where we can work and deal with some of these traumas, but like in a way that's fun and fierce and empowering, and we get to just let it all be ourselves. If they want to give me a call, I want to meet them. If they want to come and be a part of, when they see I throw out this, mural work, and they want to come and be a part of that community, I will be putting up that drumbeat. And I think the way that people can find me is if they listen to the drumbeat, and it will come, and we will find each other.
That is so beautiful. So maybe I was listening to the drum beat, and that's maybe how I found you.
Or I was
Because
listening to
before
your
I
drum.
even knew about your resonance with the drum, when we were talking on the phone about the community gathering, I immediately thought of the drum with you.
Yeah.
And I just remember saying, well, how about what if you were to do something with the drum to end the evening, like to close the ceremony with the drum, and it was so beautiful. I loved it.
It was really special to me. And Arlette Lucero is this very special friend of mine. I can't believe we've known each other for so long. She held the phone up so I could read the lyrics, and Rose was taking pictures of me, and I felt really held by two of my dearest friends. I felt held by you by asking me to sit there and to bring my honoring my gift, my song, to the people who have helped me find my home and my heritage and my heart, and connect me to my mother again. So thank
Yes, I love that. And you also made the song about the grandmother too, which I thought was just so powerful, and I resonated with that a lot.
It was like the song of the moment, I felt like I heard that other people were singing that song somewhere. I was like, they just, the grandmothers want to come through. So I just felt it was full circle for me, and I felt so honored, and you really blessed me with that opportunity. So thank you.
Wow. Well, likewise, thank you. Would you like to tell us anything more about your art and healing, your career, anything you're into right now, things you want people to know?
Yeah, so Arlette, Lucero, and I are doing a dive deep into the mandala work up here in Cedar Edge here on the Equinox. We have 2 spots left. If people want to sign up, it's very affordable. It won't be forever because Arlette is just shining, and but she's such a special part of the community that, we want to keep that accessible. I'm doing drum birthing retreats, and we are over 60 in the North Star Drummers. And so we will be doing a reunion gathering, and it would be lovely if people wanted to come and just birth themselves through the drums, remember the heartbeat. I'm also doing some work with the plant medicines, the sacred plant medicines, and rite of passage work, activating ourselves, receiving the gift from the lands, going back to Antigua, Guatemala, and then into Iceland in 2024. And then I have these mural works coming up, and I'm always available to connect with people about healing.
That is beautiful. So I will put the links to these, anything that you have, like any retreats or anything that you have, I'll add those links to the notes on YouTube if there's something that's recurring. Because I know you said one is coming up, right? And you've only got 2 spots, the one with Arlette.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anything that we can invite people to that you're doing, I'll add that to the notes. And
Thank you so much, Neena. Thank you for
yes, thank you. Well, I have a
embodying the
couple.
goddess. You are just such a beautiful woman, and I am grateful to just continue our friendship and to really actively nourish it in a way, not just orbiting now. We really are.
Right. I am too. I am really, really, I am very much very grateful. And I wanted to circle back around for a quick minute about the autoimmunity that we were talking about. One of my questions is, what do you feel is at the root cause of autoimmunity and other challenging health conditions? And I believe you started to say that we're getting so far away from our grounding, right? So could you speak a little bit about that and what you think in your practice, in your work that you're doing, what is really at the root cause of it?
I wish I had what I had written there, to reference, because sometimes things move through me and I don't remember them later. But I want to say,
I'll put it on the notes, but do you want me to read it for you?
yeah, I just want to let me just say real quick so I can answer sort of in the moment, and then I would love to hear it. Um, honestly, remember when I said I had that out of body experience and my organs started to act up in a way?
Yeah.
Like I feel that collectively, the more we move into these digital experiences and out of our body and not really be in the nervous system out here and not really listening and tending to what's coming through for me right now is that, wow, we must be really leaving our organs. We need to come back home to ourselves so we can remember the ancestral heartbeat and so that everything can work in a fluid drumbeat. But I would like to hear what I said when I wrote.
It's so beautiful what you wrote. You said, I feel the destruction of the wild places where we receive nervous system respite and restore, the pollution of our water, air, and foods, and clearing the impact of disease in past lineages, mindsets of violence and war and depression inherited, and no way to express and move. The removal of dance and song and laughter as a communal family and the alienation of home from conflict. That people forgot to know how to properly grieve and emote and move their bodies is paramount when we were meant to transmute, not preserve, and hold on beyond a natural process.
Oh my God, to have those words, when you have your words reflected back to you, it's just I didn't know some spirit said that, right?
You said that. Well, I know what you mean though. You felt that channeling in the moment. And it's so beautiful that what you wrote, and it feels so true.
Well, it really encompasses our whole conversation. I feel like we touched on every single bit about that. And one of the things that I've noticed watching trees is that trees will experience a drought and then 8 years later have an effect of that drought in their show up so that we can see that, right? And so when things like the plague happen or the Inquisition or the colonizations, or the destruction of the redwoods and the Brazilian forest, all of this, right? you know, even down to our children in mines, you know, like in other places, like those things have a direct effect on us as if we were tree rings, and we do exhibit it later in time. And the fact that we have so many autoimmune, when I walk into the store and I see that everybody is getting anti-inflammatory for their gut, you know, supplements, all the things, you know, that we collectively, if it's on the store shelf, everybody's having that problem.
Right.
And so we aren't talking about it, but we're like a tree ring that has, or an ash line in the canyon. No, we could see on that timeline something happened, and then you can see, oh, it had affected it later, right? Because we're on an arc of time. We're not on a linear.
Exactly. Wow. And you have so much experience. You also shared with me, remember when we had lunch in Golden? You shared with me some really helpful things like the biomat, the red light, things that have helped you. Platinum LED was the name of the company, I believe.
Yeah, and Eureka.
Castor oil and Eureka. Okay. And then I want to also post some of this on the notes as well, because I think that what I would like to do is start developing on this channel is like resources for people, you know?
I love that. And Platinum LED does do a really fine job. They're one of the best, and it is a medical tool. And then as far as the biomat goes, I know that, you know, as far as affordability and the ethical nature of it, I try not to source too much from China. So the Eureka biomats come from Korea, South Korea, and I know that it, you know, is family run, even though probably a wealthy family. I do still like to support in those ways, you know, that are connected, even if they are a larger corporation, but that will help a country, a smaller country. So that's why I use that biomat, and they really do good work. I feel like also when we look down the timeline, like they've been doing it for a very long time. But those
Mhm.
specific ones, the PEMF, the platinum LED red lights, the frequencies of the different lights, and the biomat are a result of, you know, all these healers who have patented energy work to finally get this to that place, and they utilize it in NASA to help you know, bring the muscle mass back from people who go into space, and fire burn victims. And they are using things like this in Manuka honey in those units. Yet why aren't we seeing that in everyday care, so that it's not preventative, it's nourishing care that we're getting, right? That we are actually receiving frequency light. Well, it's, you know, blocked by big pharma, and we're not able to get those things. So there are people who are in more of an affordable elite kind of status that they call themselves biohackers, that do research, whether it not be a peer approved or reviewed studied. Some of them are, they are getting the research done that these different frequencies are really very helpful for us. And so all the ones that I just showed you are actual medical tools, but they come from people who were brave enough to step out of the status quo and ask the questions, which
Yeah,
is what we got to do.
exactly. Well, and also you've experienced these too. So I think that, you know, that's also very validating that you've experienced these and that they've helped you as well. So,
Transformational change with my thyroid and my Hashimoto's with the red light. And when I hurt my knee and when I was using the PEMF, like I was doing Taekwondo at the same time. After a session on the PEMF machine, I was kicking, you know, and jumping, doing all the good stuff,
what's
right?
the PMF machine? I don't recall hearing.
It's positive magnetic electromagnetic frequency. So when we sit in front of our computers or we sit on just a heating pad, we're getting negative electromagnetic frequency, meaning it's consistently running through those wires, creating a negative charge. And it causes things like depression, and it causes you know, just the degradation, of our body. We don't feel good, we feel lethargic, all those things. And so PEMF actually brings us like ionic changes, and it helps us have circulation and opens our body. So the actual study is, okay, if you go into the supermarket and at a high frequency of light, you feel sick and nauseous under the LEDs, but you take a different kind of frequency, a lower and a different color frequency of light, and it actually regenerates your cells. Like, we need to have these creative thinkings. That's why, again, circling around to Escuela, why having schools that fight for this, moving beyond the status quo. We have more free thinkers, and we are thinking beyond the boxes and saying, well, what if? Because we create reality, right? I don't want to know about the underserved. What if we all were served, right?
Well, there you go. There you go. And that would change a lot of people's maybe mindset about how they feel about themselves.
And where our funding money goes, and where we are pooling our resources, because if we can pool those resources into the things that are helpful for people and help them heal, like bringing sage into the rooms, making sure mamas have, birthing tubs and they're able to move around and eat, like move beyond the fact that, so what if somebody poops on the floor? Like, we've been birthing child, forever, right? Like, we have to not starve ourselves and get ourselves to a place where we can't feel like we can trust our own bodies. We got to open up to what's healing. So we saw it in the pandemic. We cannot have backlog of death. That's not where we're going.
Right. Well, and you listed here on the notes that you sent me where your artwork is located, and so I'll list that on the notes on YouTube. Would you like to tell us as well, like some places where people could see your artwork, and then also how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah. Numa Chiropractic, Sweet Wellness, they all have artwork of mine, and they're healing places that you can definitely go find healing in Denver and in Westminster. Several people have it out of their private practice. I can't quite think of their names exactly in this moment, and have done logos for several chiropractors as well, visionary logos. Out here, I am in Sugar Mama's Cafe, and I did the mural at the Mesa Moon Hotel out here in CHAC, Colorado. Right now, I think that's it.
And how do people get in touch with you?
Sometimes show at CHAC. My phone and email is my best, and usually a text or an email is better for me because I'm usually using many arms.
So
It's easier for me to text and move than it is for me to talk and move.
Is it okay to add your email on here on the YouTube?
Absolutely. And my Facebook is a great place, and also my Instagram. So if I haven't sent you that, I'll send it to you as well.
Okay. I believe I have all of that because that's how we've been getting in touch about the community gathering. So I'll add that as well. And now one of my favorite questions, which is what collaboration ideas do you see for us?
I see something that involves weaving, an artistic weaving of healing, of ceremony, and of dance, of movement, possibly song and smoke. I'm seeing like this. It's funny because today is the Mayan energy of the spider, and it's a lot about weaving.
The spider's really big for me right now.
Me too. I got bit like 10 times. I'm like, okay, I'm paying attention. Right on different, like, I always find out where on my meridians, my Chinese meridians, different lines where I get bit because I think that they're giving me acupuncture.
Interesting. That's cool.
But yeah, I'd love to, if you want to share a little bit about the spider. Do you want?
Well, the way it's affecting me is that I just come across a lot of spiders, and they don't do anything to me, but they just kind of show up, and I'm not even afraid of. And then also just I tend to really love spiders. Like I just see them and I'm just so fascinated with, well, we've been talking about 8 arms this whole time. They have 8 legs. So maybe there's something to that, like going on for you as well. Yeah, I'm really just fascinated with them. I think it helps connect me to my writing. Like I think every time I see a spider, I'm just like, remember to do your writing. Remember to connect with your writing.
That's the creative grandmother spider. And I love that you said 8 because it's actually the number of the day energy too. It's 8 Kat, which is the spider energy. And it's about weaving that nourishment into our lives. And I feel what I see us doing is like a great big weaving. And it has this goddess dance about it, a performance of where we've been and how we've healed and how we can bring that expansiveness and share that with the community. That's what I feel. How do you feel?
Well, I feel that too. I mean, it's very natural for me to think on those terms of like performance art and put my thoughts and everything into like a performance piece. So maybe we can put something together like that. I love what you wrote it. The way you wrote it was like, I would love to do an interactive art installation with performance art. So I see it being everything you said, and then we're creating like a installation at the same time.
So I have an idea that has been in my mind for a long time, and it feels like we could be perfect together. I don't know, but like I've always seen like how could we do a performance of weaving of the weaving of the spider and create like a really large dream weaver and incorporate people coming into that and experiencing and putting their memories and their experiences on it, positive and negative, so that there is a marker of the threshold. So it is a sort of a ritualized place that could continue, that people could continue to come and create as an altar. But, we, when I see it being woven, I really see a dance, like a spider woman, grandmother dance.
Ooh, okay. I can totally get down with that. Because all of a sudden I saw my own grandmother, and I've been doing this. I'm actually working on something that's a writing piece, and it's giving honoring my ancestors and my relatives and my grandmother, like with stuff that she's given me, which is mostly clothing. Like I have clothing from certain relatives that I want to bring out into the world and just share some stories about them. So I think that and her name is Lily. My grandmother's name is Lily. So I keep seeing like these flowers and stuff too.
I love the flower beings. You want to know why? They are the best witness. They are. They just take it in and reflect so much beauty back to us.
Yes. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. Really, just so expansive, so spacious. And I really want to say thank you for your time. Thanks for everything. You've just given so much. And I love that we're continuing this journey together.
Me too, Neena. I think you're so cool. And I just am excited and beside myself. This was really a great conversation. And I love how it just sort of so organic and just unfolds. I really appreciate that template because that's
Of
the
course.
way my heart beats.
Yes. Yes. Well, you have so much integrity and what you do is very amazing. So I'm just really looking forward to more people, being part of what you're doing, including me. So include me.
Yay! Let's do this. I was a little timid of sharing that, so thank you for letting me open into that
Oh,
possibility.
I literally saw it all while you were talking, and this happens a lot. It's just how artists roll, right?